So, first meeting minutes from December 4th.
December 30th.
December 30th and 4th, yes. Any comments on December 3rd? You
I
weren't
wasn't
there.
there.
Actually, we can't vote on those tonight. We should probably wait till, I guess, I have to think about the rule. We have a quorum tonight. I don't know if we need to approve those of 3 out of 5 members of the board. I think we do, yeah. She can't vote,
I understand.
so we really need to wait till next.
Unless you divided them, so you could vote on,
Oh, yeah, no, we
Yeah,
can
they
vote on the 4th minutes, but not the 3rd.
yeah.
Let's do that.
Minutes from 12, next week. Minutes from 4.
I make the motion to approve the minutes from 12:04.
I second that motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One week to Christmas. Okay. So, we're gonna talk about interviews with people? I guess I'll start. I have not talked to Phil Knowles or Karen Dowd for the 2 people I was considering talking to about this. I have not done that.
Do you have it scheduled?
I do not have it scheduled.
Do you think it'll get done before
Well,
our next meeting?
I do, and I hope, I'm hopeful. And part of me also, I had gotten some feedback before, not so great feedback, that we didn't have good luck with the other interviews, so I want to talk first before I schedule. So with that,
So mine will be fast because I am scheduled to speak with Cheryl Knudsen, Chair of the Board of Health, on Friday morning. She deferred the interview until she could discuss some of the questions with some of her other board members. Apparently she drafted a response, shared it with her board members for their review first. So I will be meeting with her on Friday morning.
okay, great.
Well, I met with Martha on the 10th, and we zipped through the questions, very responsive, good answers.
Great.
She did think, and I know that we were sort of doing a beta run on our questions. She thought that the second set, the last set of questions were somewhat redundant.
Okay.
And she thought we were asking the same question like 5 different ways, and then we talked about it a little bit, but she said she could see where it turned out to be redundant for her particular board, because there were many things that she didn't have any answers or she felt weren't applicable.
Right.
The planning board, okay? So, we have multiple, we kind of approach things in different ways in that last section. And she and I talked about it a little bit, and I think she ended up agreeing that it was a good approach.
Did she give you any other feedback on the process or the form of the questions?
No, she was, it was a very easy interview. She was very aware that everything she told me, would be part of the public record, and she said people are going to want to tell you things that they don't want in the public record, and we had discussed that in the beginning, and it was.
Did it last, I'm predicting it lasted between 1 hour and 2 hours, is that
It was an
correct?
hour and a half,
Hour and a half.
yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so I'm planning,
Yeah, you gotta.
or mine, I'm doing it before work, so I can
Yeah.
figure out how.
Well, she's coming with prepared answers. It may be quicker. I mean, Martha knew what she wanted to answer for every question, so it wasn't like she wasn't prepared. But if you have something written down, then it's usually a little more,
Fair, it may be faster,
maybe,
we'll see.
yeah.
I'll see. So I'm not surprised that someone or anyone would have found some of the questions redundant. But I would suggest that we get more data points before making any decisions,
Yeah,
whether
yeah.
to remove any. If we hear that from a few others, then we may want to reconsider.
Yeah. And what I do find though, if the question is there and they think, well, didn't I just answer that? You can say, yeah, I think you did. We'll just move on to the next one. Because I think one of the reasons we had some of these questions there was to prompt or pull
Think about
the
it different
answers
ways.
that we
Yeah.
wanted, we wanted to get from them.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's encouraging, I'm happy to hear that, because at first it seemed to me that, I was concerned that this process wasn't gonna bear any fruit, so, I'd like to have some data if possible. Because otherwise, we're just going to be studying different forms of government and saying, well, these are your options.
Mhm. I did have a question. You know, when I sat and interviewed Martha, I took notes in my own style, which nobody else in the world could read. So what's the way we're reporting the information back to the group? Do you want me to go through the questions and write down the comments to the comments I got back?
I would keep your own personal notes,
Mhm.
and at some point, we're going to have to compile it. In some kind of matrix, you know, and I'm not sure how, it's gonna be very interesting to see whether or not your personal, like, once you give me your notes, it's a public record.
Yes, I understand that.
So we have to, I think, talk about that as a board, how we wanna deal with that.
Mhm.
Especially if we find that we do this beta testing, that people have more comments off the record than on the record,
Yeah,
so.
I agree, I like the idea of if you have Excel, just having, you know, questions, whatever they are, 1 through 26 or whatever they
yeah,
are.
yeah.
We don't have to retype the questions, you know.
We'll just
you do,
use the
but if you could
numbers.
just
We have
exactly,
the
and
numbers.
you just capture
Yeah.
Martha's answers, and then I'll do
Yeah.
the same when I do Cheryl, and at some point, we can either, and I'd be willing to do it, perhaps depending on how many
Just-
there are,
just
just
mirroring them,
aggregate it,
yeah,
right, exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But I do think if we all agree just to capture it in Excel or
Mhm.
something like that, that would be the easiest
Mhm.
for down the road.
Mhm.
Based on your conversations, does it seem like it would be useful to have questions be agree, don't agree, or strongly agree, one of those types of scales?
Well, the things that were not applicable to the planning board, Martha just said, oh, that doesn't really apply to me. So that was very straightforward. Things that did apply to her or that she felt strongly about, of course, she had an opinion to express. So I think that
Good, that's what we want.
that's what we want,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So I think if agreeing and disagreeing, I don't think allows them to give you the nuances of their answer, because
Okay.
this isn't yes or
Good point.
no,
I
it
think
isn't
it's
up
good.
or down.
That's a good point.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of these questions aren't geared toward that either, but I was just trying to think of how to compile the information that makes it useful for the board of selectmen, or the public.
Well, maybe once we get that into a spreadsheet, we can see, okay, for example, say we interview 10 people and 5 of them are basically saying one thing, you know, and 3 of them are saying something else and 2 are saying,
Completely different things, yeah.
but then
But then we
maybe,
can summarize them.
maybe there is some commonality, but we can't see that until we,
Till we have the answers. Okay.
yeah,
More data points.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious, for the not applicable or things like this, whatever, I mean, was it, I hope, less than half?
Oh, it was just a couple,
Good.
yeah.
Like a lot of planning board functions just wouldn't be as much interaction with a lot of the town departments.
That was a lot of it. From the point of view of, from what I understood from Martha was that the planning board, when they're in working mode, are like in overload, because they have some deadline to make some report about something. But a lot of other times, they don't even really need to meet, because there's nothing before them, you know, so it's a kind of a different.
Their main task is making sure streets are properly laid out, and,
Oh, they they would say
Yeah, there's
differently.
more, there's zoning bylaws and some permitting and hearings and stuff like that too, but those types of tasks don't really lend themselves to, say, interaction with the town's finance department. There's just
No, exactly,
crossover.
exactly.
So, anyway, so that's good to know, and so I think maybe at our first meeting in January, we can have me and Dave and Libby report and see how their interviews went, and you, give an update, and then we can further visit this. And I think also too that we need to start thinking about ways we're gonna supplement this information, you know. For my part, I plan to study different forms of government. There are forms of government that are available, you know, do Massachusetts Department of Local Services. That I could study for options that, you know, once we start getting some answers and some hopefully some clarity based on these interviews, we can maybe start thinking about more broadly.
I would also look to you, Lou, or others on the committee as to who else should be interviewed. I'm, you know, you already were aware that the planning board, some of the questions may not apply to the planning board. I am completely ignorant of which boards would or would not be. So I, you know, I will defer to your judgment as to who it's worth.
Well, so my thought was that I didn't want to exclude any appointed or elected officials based on their roles.
Yeah.
Especially because maybe they've had multiple roles, and sometimes you want to have those people, especially those people, give you some information. But I also do think eventually we have to interview the department heads if we can, and that gets a little back into what our prior discussions were about, you know, being sensitive to their position, and they for them having to report about inefficiencies and how things may or may not work in town. So, but I like the fact that we're doing a beta test and we're getting some feedback now. It may help us further refine our questions or our approach. Because again, other than this, you know, we can interview people outside of Topsfield to see what worked for them, but that to me isn't as good as interviewing people in the town. And other than that, we can study recommendations made by the state and different forms of government, but I'd rather base any recommendations and report that we have on, you know, town official experiences.
Would there be any benefit into looking at the recommendations from the last review committee and trying to understand why those weren't accepted, why they wouldn't work?
Sure. I mean, that was 10 years ago now, so in some respects, I would like to think of this as a fresh review. My understanding of their recommendations was they didn't do a process like this. I'm not sure exactly how they gathered their data to make the recommendations that they did. I don't know if there was a goal in mind at the outset or not. But we could certainly try to talk to them. I know some people who were on that committee are still around, but I would like for us to do our own investigation if possible.
Well, I was only assigned Martha, and I've done her, so if there's somebody else or some other people you want me to take a look at, because our meeting is, we have a good week after New Year's.
That's a good, you know, people may be around and available.
January 8th is when we said.
And
Yeah,
something, there's a possibility I can't meet on the 8th now, so.
Oh, the vice chair can come.
Okay. That's Dave, right? Is that Dave? Or you?
That would
It's
be
Dave, yeah.
That would be good.
So the vice chair can run the meeting if he wants to. We
Or we.
Not necessarily volunteer, or we
I
can
was saying
reschedule.
that half in jest,
Yeah.
but only half in jest. We could meet without you,
Well-
or if you'd rather us reschedule, we can get you.
I'll know more, hopefully within the next week or two, whether or not I have to be somewhere else in the heat. In which case, we could either maybe reschedule for that Wednesday, if that works for people, or we could just meet the following Tuesday at our normal time.
Either's fine with me.
And either's fine. So you'll let the group
Yeah, so
know
I'll email, I can email the group
Sure.
about meeting schedule, so I'll email availability and see what we can do. Okay. But back to that, this may be a good time, because people may be around because of the holidays.
Yeah, I think after the first of the year, people just sort of go back to their regular lives. So, I don't know, if you want me to take on one or two more, or
Well,
do we wanna wait till we hear from?
why don't we do one? Put it this way, I think the more we can knock off our list, the better. But I don't want to do too many either, because I don't think that's fair to you, and I don't think that, I think we also want to review as a group how the interviews went, how our beta testing
Yeah.
beta testing went.
I have no objections to your interviewing 40 more people.
Sure.
For your own sanity, though, so.
Well, then I'll have quite an overview, won't I? Do you have any feelings for who you want me to do next?
Well, do you know any of the chairs?
Yeah,
I think I'd start
I
there.
know Dave, I know Laura from the library, I know Jen Collins,
Dave
Bond.
Bond.
Oh, was he on any
No, non-department heads. Is he a?
Oh, that's right, he's not the chairman of the board. I know Cheryl Jolly from the Conservation Commission, Penny Rogers from COA.
Either of those people would be fine. If you think that, if you don't mind, if you want to do it, absolutely.
Okay.
The Conservation Commission and Council on Aging also have very, the Council on Aging has a very unique mission. I don't know how much I've personally never dealt with the Council of Aging. They don't have legal issues usually, so.
You should be happy, because if they
Yeah.
do, they're gonna be big ones.
So I don't know, honestly, how much overlap they would have with other town departments and government.
Oh, they're very dependent
Yeah, I would
on
think,
what happens in town government.
well, okay.
But if there's somebody else, I mean, I'd approach someone I don't know too.
Oh, that's fine, and I will too, because there are a lot of these people I don't know, I'm sure I'll be approaching. Whoever you're comfortable doing this with, that's what I would answer, and as long as there's no overlap, I mean, you don't show jolly or,
No. We specified last time. Libby's doing Gail Bryson. Dave's doing Joe Geller.
and I was gonna do Phil Knowles.
You're doing Full, and Cheryl Knowles, you did Martin, so.
It's up to you. Whatever you can bring back for us as a group for information is a bonus in my eyes, so whatever you wanna do, if you wanna do it.
Okay. Well, I'll see who I can
Yeah, see if you,
wrangle.
yeah, see if anyone wants to talk to you on Christmas Day.
Climate thing.
It'll only take an hour or two. Okay. So, any other feedback, any other discussion on questions or the process or people?
I've done nothing since we last met other than set up.
I have had people approach me who knew I was on this and said, oh, I watched the Board of Selectmen meeting that your group was there, and they said, this is really good you're doing it, but you're gonna have something to report back by March?
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure about that. I still feel like I'd rather get the right result than not the rushed result, so.
Yeah, I feel pretty strong. I mentioned something about that the last time, but then when I started hearing from people, that seemed like a pretty, aggressive.
I don't know that that's what they
Schedule.
want. I mean, there was a brief comment about that at the Board of Selectmen meeting, but I don't know that that's the expectation. When I was appointed to be on this committee, I asked that question, and that wasn't the feeling of the board that, at that time that I thought. So
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the feeling of the whole Board of Selectmen. I don't know how realistic it is anyway, so.
okay. If we're gonna do it, we should do it right.
I would rather put my name on something where we've done some research first, so.
Is there any other approach we can be taking during this time when, separate from interviewing these people, we could have a lot of, it could take us a long time to get through these people. Is there some other
Yeah.
parallel thing we could be
Yeah,
doing?
I think-
Specific things we can be reviewing, or?
Yeah, I think it's too soon for us to pivot, I think, from this plan. But I think we need to be mindful of having an alternate or supplemental strategy to get information, or a strategy of how we're going to come up with our report and recommendations. And I'm not exactly sure what that's gonna be yet, but there can be studies of other towns and forms of government, and we can just start thinking about objectively of what advantages and disadvantages those forms of government might bring. I'm not suggesting we move away from open town meeting form of government. I feel pretty strongly, and I think you would agree that that's the right form of government for this town. I'm talking about within that form of government and how we might tweak it, make small changes or recommendations for small changes that would benefit the town. How can we make it more efficient, essentially? And I think that there are different models out there. We just have to find them and figure out what they are and have discussions and say, well, does it make sense for, what are the benefits of having Public Works consolidated under a superintendent of the Department of Public Works? You know, and is centralization right for the town of Topsfield? We're gonna have to have those types of conversations, I think. But so on my end of things, I plan to try to study those different forms of government and bring back, I don't know if I'll be bringing back org charts, or if I'll just be describing to the group generally about what they could be. I've seen towns have Board of Selectmen, there's all kinds of different permutations, even with the Northern Town Meeting. You could have like a finance director, a DPW director, and, you know, your fire chief and police chief as public safety officials, and they all report directly to the town administrator or town manager, who reports directly to the Board of Selectmen. But those three people have their own little, they lead the financial team, the buildings and grounds and highway team, and the public safety team. And so there's that sort of division of labor, but you also have three people in charge who, you know,
Are experts in that area.
experts in that area,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
could centralize the decision-making process and have a better grasp of what those different fields need. So there are things like that that we can study. The hard part is coming up with, well, what's right for Topsfield? You know, rather than just, I would like to, that's why I feel like we're doing these questions, rather than just say, all right, Board of Selectmen, here are your options. I'd like to say, here are your options, and this is the feedback that we got from across the town about these different types of current functions of the town, and so because of that feedback, we think you might choose option B, might consider option B, or weight the options. I mean, you're all welcome to sort of look into that in other town forms of government, but I don't think we all need to be doing that. Or more than welcome to. So I figured I would just take that on. Because right now, our form of government, you could study that as well, but I mean, we have no charter, we have no special act that acts as a charter. So we're just organized under the basic general laws, and it's pretty much as decentralized as it can be. So,
How long, forgive my
Town administrator, I think, was '06, is that right? When did we change, when did we adopt the, town administrator, '06?
Well,
Yeah.
it was adopted in '05. It was
Okay,
adopted
first year
in
was
'05
'06.
and implemented in
So
'06.
12
Okay.
years.
Yeah, 12 years. So it's about time we have this review, and I think that's probably part of why we're doing it, so. You know, and there are different ways town administrator can go about her duties, or some duties could be without changing the form of government, and we don't have to get into this, but like there could be chief procurement officer, or personnel officer, or something along those lines. There are all types of things that aren't necessarily structural, it's more personnel, and that's the piece here that I'm trying to avoid. You had some experience with the personnel stuff, right? So, that can remind me a little bit. I don't know, I feel like I'm talking an extra amount tonight.
Your filling space.
We don't really have much else to talk about tonight. We could have discussions philosophically, I'd rather do it when all of us are
Oh,
here.
yes.
About, you know, how we feel about centralization and forms of government on just a philosophical basis too. So, I have,
That discussion can happen in it can happen in two ways at least, or maybe three. One is our personal feelings. The second way would be from the people we've interviewed, you know, and in discussions, are we a representative of them more or less, or whatever? And then the third could just be from research that we did too.
and I'd like to have some combination of those things if
Mhm.
possible. At the end of the day, I don't know how much value our questions bring, but I think it's more than just data gleaned from a state website.
I think, what I see as a good value in that is these people are the ones that are actually running the town now. And they're going to have, their experience is going to be invaluable. And when they say to us, well, that will never work because, I think we need to listen to them. Or this is really working well now, then we should,
Leave that
ta-
alone.
yeah, or factor that into the final equation. It is working well now, how do we make sure it continues to do that, even if we change some structure?
Okay. So do we have any other thoughts? I'm on agenda item 3, I guess, still. Investigating town government's effectiveness and efficiency. When I had put that agenda item down, I think I was contemplating investigating other towns, town governments, not necessarily Topsfield's. But it doesn't necessarily need to exclude Topsfield. So this is someone gonna say, like, the question you just asked, like, what else can we be doing? Investigating this. I mean, when we talk about effectiveness and efficiency, we talk about delivery of services, and, you know, that's something that public feedback would be helpful on. Maybe we consider, again, having that public forum at some point. Not that I wanna be a complaint department. So, and in efficiency, there's, you know, how much time does it take people to do things, there's a cost element to that. There's redundancies, part of that. There's, you know, you could drill down pretty far if you wanted to. That's why I think we want to ask our, I think that was Dave who just texted me. We could drill down pretty far into that, and I don't think that's what our task is. Our task is to just deal with what efficiencies might be gained. Like, if it's evident from a high-level view that the DPW and, say, Parks and Rec and Water are all doing the same task, or something like that type of thing. And so it's, I don't know if we get that kind of detail from our, drill down in the budgets, but that's not what our task is. So, any other thoughts on that?
No, I'm happy to take direction. Who, if you want me to do do some internet research, try to carve out some time to do it, but
I don't think that's necessary. I think, I'm gonna try to find some good materials on the state website. I'm hoping they have org charts already. There are a bunch of also MMA, Massachusetts Municipal Association resources, that may be helpful, but at the end of the day, I think those are just providing options. They don't tell you what the right option is. Right option for us. So, I don't have any correspondences or materials from this week. You guys receive anything? No?
you have a handout.
One second. Do you have anything, correspondence or materials? What's up? You did send me an email on the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah, the 9 goals.
the
for
9
town.
goals, so I do have that.
You hadn't seen it before.
I had not seen it, so,
I think it's very helpful and
Yeah.
should be, pushed out to people so they understand where the town's going. It's on the website, but, most people don't go fishing around for what's new.
that's, I agree, there's overlap there. But that's a Board of Selectmen decision whether or not
Correct.
they wanna push that out to the public.
You mentioned you hadn't seen it, so.
And they do. The item number 6 on that list of goals is, look into town operating efficiencies, and so there's some overlap with what we're doing. Because they're looking at it from a personnel standpoint, but they're also looking at it, I think, from a overall structural standpoint. And I don't know if the Board of Selectmen has actually started looking at that yet or not, that piece of it, so. Has the board had discussions on that? No. So we actually already talked about upcoming meeting schedule, so for now, we'll meet on the 8th, and if I can't do that, I'll send everyone an email. So we're gonna be on email next week, I assume? Yes. You guys wanna know when our next meeting is, or you just check the post?
No, I haven't finished.
Go ahead.
A comment? I attended a meeting of one of the municipal meetings, and no one at the meeting, the members, knew about the GRC and what was going on. Now, in a sense, somebody would say, get with it, but just to mention it, it's something that happened recently.
It's a town meeting?
It was a town meeting, right.
What
And,
meeting was it, Dick?
Remember?
The Parkin Cemetery.
Oh, okay.
I have not reached out to anyone to announce this.
So Gretchen's very much involved with,
Yeah.
what goes on in the town, it's not, whatever, but they were not aware of what you were doing at all. So I think there may be others in that same mode, maybe. You may wanna think about how to, maybe just a quick email or something like that.
So that's a good point. I have not reached out to anyone yet directly. I might have mentioned to people in passing as I bumped into them, but I've not officially reached out to anyone about this committee yet. As soon as we would do it, after we had our list of questions, we could say, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. We'd like to talk to people. As a, go ahead. No,
Dick, I'm thinking here, Dick's making a good point. If these various people that we will be interviewing at some point, if we send them, you as the chairman, of course, send them just a quick message that says, this committee exists, we will be seeking input from you.
well, my understanding is that Kelly's told the department heads that we exist.
No, but the
And-
department heads are employees.
Yes,
Yeah,
she's told the department heads
Yeah.
that we exist and that they may be receiving questions from us.
yeah.
I suppose I could get every chair of every board's email and say, hey, by the way, I'm Lou Ross. Nice to meet you. We may have some questions for you coming up in the very near future. So I could do that. I'll do that.
Well,
But
since we're acting under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, why doesn't the Board of
well, that was,
Selectmen let people know?
when Dick first said that, that was my initial reaction actually, but.
That could very well be, The one thought I have is if you do an email, don't worry about coming up with all the list of names. Express what you want and
Then give it to
give
Kelly.
it to Debbie, and she'll
Debbie.
take care of
Okay,
getting it to the people that you say.
Okay.
Mhm.
You want department heads, you want members, chairs only, whatever, of the committees or whatever. She'll take care of getting it out. The idea is to
Let people
document.
know.
Now, if you want the board to do it,
No, we don't want the board to do it, I just, you know.
it's not a bad question.
No, so, you know, I was trying to stay under the radar. The publicity, you know, we'll eventually have to make ourselves known to people, but I just wanted us to get our ducks in a row first, that was just my just feeling. But it may make sense to make an announcement if, I mean, we're 2 months into this process now, almost, and so we can do that. I'll email Debbie, I don't see that being a problem.
A suggestion, sooner or later, you want to take answers that you got and document them. I think if you try to put them in a computer and kind of summarize them so that it's in writing instead of, in type instead of writing, it may be interesting because sometimes when you see them kind of typed out and all the things, you start getting ideas of, gee, this kind of question is really categorized as a yes and no. This one is strongly agree, disagree type of one. Maybe they didn't answer it that way, but it lends itself to that sort of thing. And this one, we really want all the pros. It's up to you, but it just seems to me, since you're going to, at some point, do it anyway, try doing it because it may help, maybe even change the way in which the question is worded so that you get a different kind of response. It's up to you, but it was just a thought as you were going.
I think that was the intent, but I think we also need to figure out how this process starts to play out and see what we get.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So,
And I just meant like, if you, yeah.
yeah, we eventually have to compile, put our heads together, figure out what all our different answers were, and see what common threads we have, so.
And I didn't mean that it left somebody's personal notes. It's still somebody's personal notes.
No, I understand that,
Okay.
yeah, no, I understand.
Good. Thank you.
One second.
Dave? Oh.
No.
That's fine, I'll get you a question, I just wanna make sure that we get through this first. So, upcoming meeting schedule, we're good on the 8th. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to bring up before Dave asks this question?
One question, one comment. Do we have an org chart of the town yet?
We have a draft org chart.
Okay, good. Because you were referring to, you know, different towns, different structures, org charts. From my perspective, I can visualize that much better than words or anything else.
We have the Board of Selectmen, well, first of all, we have town meeting, Board of Selectmen, and then everybody else on a straight line across, basically. I mean, it's not quite like that, but it's pretty close to that.
Some of them aren't even under the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah,
Well,
right. Some of them go right up to town meeting.
Right, so
I
this
think.
town
The
meeting, like
elected
the
commission.
elected, independent
Yeah.
elected officials are like that,
Mhm.
and then
That's maybe why it's so important, because the structure is like.
it's a lot of horizontal lines, not a lot of vertical lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's very, very good what you're doing now to, the questions to understand how the town works or doesn't work. And one thought as you were talking about that, the current employees may not be aware of some other organization structures, so they couldn't even suggest them or comment on them. You know,
I
you brought up
actually-
one, Lou, I hadn't even thought about. You know, 3 functions underneath the town administrator.
Honestly, some of the employees who have been here for a lot of years, you know, if they spent their whole professional career here, they may not, but they may be the people we wanna talk to the most, because if they've worked for different, like, say maybe Catherine has been a town accountant, I don't know her professional history, but she's been a town accountant in 3 or 4 different communities,
She has.
then we, you know, should certainly draw on her experience, so.
I see value from both. Your long-term employees are gonna have a really good feel for what's working and not working here,
Right.
and have known for a long time. Probably frustrating, because nothing's changed. But your people who are new, as you just said, are going to have had experience in other towns, and they'll say, oh, this really worked for me, or I came from such and such, and that
Yeah, don't do that.
organization was
Yeah.
horrible, yeah. So you're gonna get,
Yeah, but that to me is, I wanna get there, but it's just trickier dealing with the personnel with these questions, because, you know, it's hard for them to be forthright. Anything else? Anyone? Who wants to do it?
I will make
The
a
honors.
motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor? Discussion. All in favor? Aye. That was a record for us.
It was.
Thank you, Dave.